In this video, I'm going to be making an edge grain cutting board. A few months back, I built a face grain cutting board, and I learned a lot from that project. And so I'm taking the things that I learned there and I'm applying it to this new project, which is to build an edge grain cutting board. And I'm really excited for this one because I'm making this cutting board as a wedding gift for my oldest niece who's getting married. Now, just like my last board, I'm going to be using sugar maple for this board, which is the perfect wood for cutting boards because of its hardness and its tight grain. I'm using cutoffs from other projects, which is one of the benefits of making a cutting board like this. It's a great way to use up extra pieces of wood. Once I get all of my pieces cut, I use my jointer to get a straight edge and then my thickness planer to plane all of the pieces down to the right size. From there, I decide on a layout and glue them up. I'm going to be using Titebond 3, which is a waterproof and food-safe glue. And after letting the glue dry overnight, I'll get to sanding. Now this first sanding is a rough sanding, and whenever I start, I always start with a really coarse grain, something like an 80 grit, and work my way up gradually to finer and finer sandpaper. On this maple cutting board, my final sand will be a 220 grit, but I won't get to that quite yet. I've got a few more steps to take on before I do that. After my first coat of rough sanding, I'll use a router to put an edge on the top and the bottom. This softens the edges and adds some interest. Whenever I use the router, I always use a test piece first. This helps me make sure that the router is set to the right height and it really has the look that I want. One of the cardinal rules of woodworking is that you measure twice and cut once. This goes for routers too. On my last video, I had one of my corners chip out that I had to super glue and put it back in. My dad saw that video and suggested to me that in the future I consider rounding the edge grain first as it's more prone to chipping, and then go back across the sides and it'll cut out all of my chips so that no repairs will be needed. I tried that and my first pass looked like this. My second pass on the side cut it out completely and it turned out perfect with no repairs needed. On the bottom I'll do a chamfer and on the top I'll round it over. After I've routed all the edges, I give it a final sanding. Sometimes when using a router, you may hesitate or pause, and that can cause burns in the wood. All of my sanding takes care of these spots. The last step is always the most rewarding, and that's adding a finish. I'm using a food-safe butcher block finish that looks great. it's done. I hope that my niece uses it, and I hope that she enjoys it. That's it for this one. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share with your friends.